if someone points a gun at, like, I remember that feeling as a kid, like being told, it's like a Bible verse when Jesus says, like, if you, I don't know, deny the Father, then I'll deny you, whatever. So you're like, oh, if that's your last minute, if they're like, do you believe in Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior? And you're like, no. And then you have to like live with that, and you're like, I'm probably going to hell. You either just get shot in the fucking forehead, or you go to hell for all of eternity.
Okay, I need that line that Sam just said to be like the intro to this whole podcast. Like, I'd rather get shot in the fucking forehead.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Growing Up Christian. I am Sam.
And I'm Casey.
And right before we hit record, we kind of started arguing about how and why Casey bailed on me when we were looking for an off-campus apartment when we were in college together.
I don't remember this at all. And we didn't really argue. You just like started hurling accusations.
Yeah, well, I could see where this was going. And so we hit record and decided to get into it in real time. So, okay, what happened was, from my memory, it's funny, this kind of reminds me of the episode we did with Jesse where him and I can't recall how we met. No, I can recall how we met, and this is my podcast, so I can reassert myself and my dominance over him, and that I am 100% correct in the way that we met. And he is wrong. So that's fine. But with us, so we were on the dorm together. We didn't share a dorm room. There is going to be an episode coming out in a few weeks, where I do some joking and quick reminiscing about my college roommate situation. But Casey was just like down the hall from me. And every once in a while, my college roommates would go out of town. Actually, not every once in a while. Every single weekend, they would go back home. So when people got sick of their roommates or were just wanted something a little bit quieter and low key, or their roommates were out of town, people would just then default to my room because it was empty. They could just not have to be involved in shenanigans if they didn't want to. But my college roommates, I only just remembered their names this week because I've been just like racking my brain for it. I don't remember their last name, so you won't be able to really look them up. I've been trying to find them on Facebook and I can't. But Bill and Brian, they were identical twins, and they dressed the same every fucking day in college.
They were different. Like, I've never seen anything quite like that any other place. And it's like one of those stories that when you tell people, they think you're exaggerating or that you're making a big deal out of something that probably wasn't like as bad as you're saying it was. Yeah. But these two were very different.
Did you ever talk to them? Did you ever hear them speak?
I never heard them speak once.
Yeah. I only heard, this is the shit that was really creepy, was like, they never spoke when I was in the room with them. Never. I'm convinced they had like some sort of instant messenger thing going on there. I honestly think probably it was just telepathic transmission, but they never spoke when I was in the room. So there was a couple of times where I'd be coming back to my dorm room and I'd stop and I'd wait outside the door and I would hear them talking. I'd wait a little bit. It was hard to really hear. It was pretty soundproof. The dorms weren't bad for soundproofing. And then I opened the door. The second the door opened, they would stop talking. And I would like open the door and they would just both be turned and looking at me from their desks.
They just stop talking, turn in unison, and just stare at you in silence like Skyrim NPCs.
Exactly. Oh, and the other thing that really stuck with me is they both, look, it's fine if you don't believe me. People don't have to believe me. It's the fucking truth. They both slept on their backs with their arms crossed over their chest every night.
Like
Every night.
vampires?
Like fucking vampires. Their covers came up perfectly up to like they're just below their chest. Their hands were always peeking up over them, and they were just flat on their backs. It was fucking weird.
Dude, I could see them like turning the lights off and then in unison being like, "Now I lay me down to sleep."
I know. And so they would wake up every morning. They didn't have the same class together, but they were in school to become teachers. Teachers. They didn't talk, but they wanted to teach. So I don't know how that's going to work out. But the first one up would lay out the clothes for the other. So that way they could wear the same thing. And then when they walked to class, if you ever saw them walking around campus, it wasn't side by side. It was like the fucking, what's the Beatles album where they're all in a line walking? It's like.
Oh, they walked one in front of the other?
One in front of the other. They never walked together. It was always one directly behind the other.
Dude, it just makes me like all signs point towards them being like aliens wearing some sort of like human suit that they skinned off of someone like Earl in Men in Black or whatever his name was.
That's really what it felt like. I mean, the way the dorms are set up, I don't know how many other dorms are set up like this, but if you like walk in, right, you look on the left and you look on the right. On the left side is my bed, and it's that loft. So it's like against the left wall, lofted with my desk underneath it. In the dead center of the dorm room was their desks facing each other. And then to the right was their bunk beds. So bottom bunk, top bunk. Because I had the lofted bed, every morning I would get out of bed and I would just like sit up, scoot my butt to the edge of the bed, and then just kind of do a little, it was a quick, I mean, it's not lofted that high, right? So it was just a quick little like push, and it was probably like 18 inches from my feet to their desk. So I would just push off, get my toes on the edge of their desk, and then just start my day. That's how I got out of bed every morning. And there was one morning where one of them had already gone to class, and the desk that I jumped on, the one adjacent to it, was where one of my, I don't know which roommates sat at which desk. I never knew the difference.
How could you ever tell?
I didn't know the difference between Bill and Brian. But so he's sitting there eating his breakfast, a bowl of cereal. I'm surprised it wasn't like cream of wheat or something fucking blandy ass like that. But I jump off, and just my toes, just the tips of my toes hit the desk. And I slip, I fall, and I land chest and face first down on the desk. The desks are pushed together. So one of them's sitting there eating breakfast, and I just flat on my fucking face on the desk. And I'm like, oh. Other people outside of my dorm room heard it and asked me what happened. My roommate didn't look up from his bowl of goddamn cereal to ask if I was okay.
He was just like sitting there hoping you were dead, chewing his cornflakes. Just like, thank God the outsider's gone.
Yeah, exactly. He didn't take a breath. I'm pretty sure I looked over and he's just like slurping his milk. Just
there was that was by far like the most bizarre people on the floor, and there was some like characters in that dorm for sure.
Oh yeah.
Do you remember Jay Reed?
Oh yeah.
So yeah. Jay Reed was a great dude. He was really nice. He was just strange, and he was a rapper. And so he would like constantly be trying to like put together these rap songs, and he was actually going and recording them someplace in Lynchburg. And I was the singer in this metal band, and so we get to talking and stuff. This was uncomfortable. So he says, he goes, "Hey man, I was wondering, I'm putting together this song called Scars, and I want you to do your thing on it." I'm like, "You want me to like scream on your rap song?" And he's like, "Yeah, man. I want you to come in and like, you do some like background effects and stuff, and maybe a verse on this song." And I was like, "Well, I mean, that's sure. I do that. That sounds cool." And little did I know we were getting like way ahead of the crunkcore
Yeah,
trend.
I was gonna say, man, a lot of people tried moving into that territory. It was
Dude,
like the
me and Jay Reed could have been like
post
the
Lincoln Park.
original. Yeah, we could have been like the original Blood on the Dance Floor or something like that. By far the most horrendous genre too, like
And
that
he,
neon hot topic like
oh yeah,
screaming rap.
ugh. And why did he call the song "Scars"?
So I don't know what happened to him. I
Yeah,
never got the story on it. He
nobody
was
did.
like he didn't really like string together sentence like you got one sentence out of him per topic and then he's on to the next thing, but he would like sometimes he'd have his shirt off and he was covered in like
Yeah,
scars all over him.
covered.
Like I
It,
don't know what happened to him, if they were surgical or if it was from like an accident or what, but he was
yeah,
coated.
I know. It was always no one wanted to ask. Honestly, in hindsight, it was like really dumb to not ask because he probably would have been like, "How the fuck isn't anybody asking me about what happened to me?" Like we're all
I
just
look like
like,
Deadpool from the neck down. Nobody says a thing.
we're just like looking at it. He's like, just look him in the eyes. Don't ask him about it. It's like he. If all I know is if my body was covered in scar, I broke my arm when I was 13 and I have a scar on my arm. And forever, I just wanted people to be like, "Well, what happened to your arm?" Because who doesn't want to talk about themselves and tell
That's
about
your.
their accidents?
It's like your second sentence after meeting someone is, "I bet you're wondering about my arm."
Yeah, and you can't see it. It's like you really. I mean, but I did every time for after it happened, like shortly, especially like the couple years. It was like yeah, probably a good 2 or 3 years after it. If I was like wearing a t-shirt, anytime people was like, "Whoa, why you got that scar on your arm?" I'm like, let me tell you a story. Like it was interesting. Like I was the only kid in the history of the world who broke his arm. It was a cool break, but it was like just that made me feel special. But people like to talk about. Well, I shouldn't say everyone likes to talk about that stuff, but he obviously had a level of comfort with it because he would just walk around the dorm without a shirt on, like everybody else.
He was a confident guy
Yeah,
for sure.
I bet he fucked.
He might have. I think so like the song that he was doing, it was like a beat that he had bought from this guy in town, and it was a sampling of at the time, remember, like every hip hop song was like a sample of something else. It was like
At
you
the
take a
time. That's
popular
basically
song
been
or
like
an old song.
that was like a how it started kind of thing. To like at the
Yeah,
time.
it seemed like like at that point in time, like everything was a sample of a song from a different genre. This
Yeah.
one was I don't remember who sings that song. We were meant to live.
I don't remember.
We were meant to live for so
So
much
much
more.
more. Was that Switchfoot?
I think it was Switchfoot.
You keep talking. I'm gonna Google.
Okay, so it was a sampling of that song, and he wanted me to just scream "scars" a bunch of times. So
It
like
was
it
Switchfoot.
made no sense in that context. Like it really didn't like play into the song at all. It was just awkward and weird. It's like this kind of like real chill rap beat, him doing his awkward rapping, and then me just in the background like scars. And to record it, he had this guy in town and I think he had bought the beat from the guy, but the guy sold him the beats and then he would charge Jay Reed to come and record his raps and stuff. And so we went to like, you know, kind of a rough neighborhood, if I remember right, and hung out in this guy's house. And there was a bunch of people there. And it was like the dude had a contempt for J Reed.
Oh,
Like,
did he really?
oh, he did not like him. You could tell he was like, this was just a money making venture for him, because he was like, one take, yeah, it's good, get out of here.
Oh,
Think like it was so awkward, and the guy was really nice to me. Like, he talked my leg off, and I don't know, it was. But yeah, I remember like the
then he was
song
like,
coming out
does your band
afterwards.
want to come record here? Do you think you guys want to record with me?
Yes, our band wants to come record in your laundry room. It was just a microphone on top of his washer dryer combo. But yeah, Jay Reed was he was proud of it. He played it a bunch.
Oh, I remember hearing it, and I am going to look for that. I think we need. I need to find it. If there's any way we can post that, it has to.
I've
happen.
looked for it.
Yeah?
I've looked for it before. I have not been able to find it.
All right. Well, we're gonna have to go through all our old college contacts until we get to Jay Reed and find it. You know, he still has it all on like an iPod Shuffle.
I'm sure. I'll bet he does. Yeah. No, that was a crazy dorm. Like, there was a lot of crazy stuff that went on in there. And our RAs were just chill about it.
Yeah, I mean, it was. God, that was like so. Anyway, we talked when we were. I was talking about getting off campus. It was after that experience of just living with the twins. In twins. I forgot about was it Coors? No, what beer had the twins?
I have no idea.
What? All right, fuck it. Moving on. So after that experience, it was like a nightmare. Usually you couldn't move off campus until you had, I think you had to be like a junior or a certain age or some shit. And I was like, I sent an email to whoever could authorize it. I don't even remember who it was, but I was like, look, I was miserable this entire year. These are my roommates. They weren't fun. They made me uncomfortable. I don't have anyone to live with next year on the dorms. I am not gambling on terrible ass roommates again. I'll just leave. And they were like, okay, you can just move off. Don't tell anybody that we gave, like, that you're an exception or whatever. Like, of course, like, how do you not tell people you're moving off the dorm? So then, but you wanted to move off the dorm. And we were just talking about it. Like, we had started looking for places. And then it was like, right. It was at that time that you said you were moving it. Am I getting my timeline wrong?
You must be, because I moved off like the middle of my junior year. I did the fall semester in the circle.
No,
and then I moved in with Tito, and
that's what it was. I was okay. Now, okay, you just brought it back. I was trying to move off halfway through the year, is what it was. And you and I started looking for places, and I was going to try to get off campus. And then you were like, yeah, sorry, I'm moving in with Tito, because I forgot that was in the middle of the year.
I don't remember any of this.
That's weird.
You sure you weren't talking to the twins?
Yeah, I was trying to get a place off campus with the twins. You don't remember, man. We could have roomed together, and you were just like, nah.
I would have been all for it.
That's when Jesse lived with you guys. And then it was after that, after I moved off campus, is when I ended up living with Jesse.
Yeah, it must have been.
Yeah. I actually forgot you moved off in the middle of the year, though.
Yeah, well, both of my roommates left. They both left the school altogether. And so I was kind of stuck. Like, they put me in with like two just random dudes. They were nice guys, but that's when I got the offer to move off with Tito. But yeah, I don't know.
The rest was history. You had an awesome experience being a fifth wheel or whatever the fuck it was in that place, and then
it's funny, like when you're at school, like the dorm is so much fun until you start to decide that you would have more fun off campus. Like,
well, I think a lot of that at Liberty had to do with the fact that they had like a 10 p.m. curfew on weekdays, and you couldn't your girlfriend couldn't hang out with you, and you're like, there were so many dumb fucking rules at Liberty that you, even though you had a lot of fun on the dorms, you couldn't just live your life. So it was you just decided you needed to, everyone felt like they had to move off.
It's so strange to have kids that are finally to the age of adulthood. They're leaving the house for the first time, and for some reason you think the best thing for them would be to impose a bunch of rules that are stricter than the rules that they had at home.
Oh yeah.
In a lot of cases.
I know.
Along with some of them being just stupid,
not being able to watch
sideburns are too long. Yeah, I got turned in on rated R movies.
Oh yeah, I did.
I can't remember if I told that story before, but somebody ratted us out.
I had gone to Walmart to Redbox, and I rented a movie. I rented a rated R movie, and then the guy behind me, after I rented it, was I turned around, he's like, "Hey man," I was like, "Fuck, hey," and he's like, "Hey, we have a class together, right?" I was like, "I'm not sure." He's like, I think we do." It's like, "You're in my some Bible class." I was like, "Oh yeah, maybe." And he was like, "Yeah, I'm pretty sure you are." He's like, "You're in this class?" I was like, "Yeah, I guess I am in that class." And he's like, "Oh, well, I'm an RA, and you just rented an R-rated movie." So,
are you kidding me?
Yeah, dude, it's so dumb. He's like, I won't write you up if you just, you just give me the movie, and I'll return it for you, and I won't write you up.
Give me the movie, because I can't trust you to put this back because I told you to.
Yeah, well,
where is that guy now? What is that guy doing? He left the school and the framework that he thrived in, because obviously telling other dudes what to do got him all boned up.
Oh yeah. So I'm like, all right, dude. I gave it to him. He returned it. I went in my car. I waited for him to leave, and then I went back in and rented the same fucking movie because it was only $1. Of course, dude. You didn't save the fucking world.
I just don't know. Maybe some people mature out of that mindset. I think the rest of them must be I envisioned that guy being the court-ordered psychiatrist in The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo.
It's insane because you don't have to do that. Nobody's going to recognize him recognizing me and then doing nothing about it and then tell somebody else. Nobody fucking cares.
He knows though.
Exactly. And he couldn't live with his conscience.
He can't live with that sin in his life.
He's like,
he was entrusted with a responsibility.
Yeah.
And you know what? Hey, look, I'm with you, man. I don't agree with all these rules here, but the fact of the matter is that we signed a contract. We signed a moral code, and I'm just not in a place where I can disregard that commitment.
Just like Jerry Jr., man.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say that guy is now one of those dentists that pulls kids' teeth out for no reason.
I remember afterwards, though, seeing him around campus, and he always tried to talk to me. It's like he felt bad and wanted to make sure we were cool. He's like, "Hey, how's it going, man?" I'm like, "It's fine." It's like, "So you've been good?" I'm like, "Mm-hmm." And it's then you just leave. And he's like, every single time I saw him, he would try to spark a conversation. It's like, "Look, dude, you made me return a 99-cent rated R movie that I just re-rented 5 seconds after you walked away. I don't care about you. I don't need to have a conversation with you."
Dude, he just wanted to witness to you so bad. You need to be
cool. Yeah, it's weird that you need to be cool with me that bad. I was desperate, dude. I was desperate in college for people to like me and to be cool with me, and I was never that bad.
Dude, he was trying to groom you.
Yeah. He groom me to come join his dorm, probably.
He's like, "Someday you'll thank me for this, Samuel."
Yeah, he's like, "I'm going to be an RD someday, and I want you to be one of my RAs." That's grooming him.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah, I feel like there's certain times, everybody has bad days and everybody does things that afterwards they regret. But once in a while somebody would do something like, have you ever had someone that you liked lose their temper at you like way too much? And from then on, like, you just can't really not see them that way.
Oh my God. That,
There was a
yeah.
kid on the dorm that did that, and like I really liked him, but after this, like, he threw a fit over something that was so benign, like screamed at me, like dressed me down in the dorm, and it was so ridiculous. Like, from that point forward, I never really hung out with him much after that, because I just felt like, oh yeah, you showed your cards, like that's the guy that you are. Like, I just can't really be cool with you after that.
I have a much more ridiculously childish version of that story. And I had this friend named Ian when I went to Christian school. I was in first in second grade. I would have said he was my best friend because I didn't know what friends were at that time in my life. And I would go over his house, and he was the kind of kid that you would play Street Fighter or more like Mortal Kombat at his house, um, but he was always an asshole, always so fucking mean to me and made me feel like shit all the time. And I would leave. I'm like, why? I don't know why I'm friends with him. But then he would be nice to me in school and then ask if I wanted to come over and hang out. And then I'd come over and then he'd be like, just make fun of me. And that made me feel bad. But also, like, no one else was asking me to go over their house. So I was like, yeah, he's my best friend. And then this is the last time I ever saw him. Probably it would have been, I think it might have been after I was like done going to school, so maybe third grade. Do you remember those like white poppers, like you would, that came in a box and you would just like, they like, you'd throw them on the ground and they'd like snap?
Oh yeah, yeah.
And like you used to like put them between your fingers and you would snap your fingers and make them go off between them.
Uh-huh.
Those were scary to me because I was a baby. So he had a box of them and he was like showing me like, oh yeah, just do it. And he like snap his finger and like go off. And I'm like, oh, I don't know. I can't. I'm scared. I'm not doing it. And he was like, you're a baby. And I was like, I just don't want to do it. And then he started throwing them at me. And I'm like, you know, when someone points a rubber band at your face and you just cower and you can't help it?
Yeah.
I would just do that. I'm like, like cowering, shivering, looking away from him. And he's just like, dance, monkey, dance, like jokingly. Like he probably thought he was being funny. And I was just being the biggest fucking puss on the planet. And so a combination of me being wildly sensitive and him being a dick made me, after that, never talk to him again. Until it was like, I had to have been 13 or 12, maybe 12. But it was, I only know it because this is when I lived on Cape Cod and it was before we moved. I was at a doctor's appointment and I came home and my brother was like, Ian came over. He lived close enough where he was like, Ian came over, like rode his bike over and like asked if you still lived here. And like I guess he wanted to like hang out. And I was like, oh. And then I never reached out. That was it. That was the last time. It's like he's probably wondering why I never talked to him again. Maybe he felt like shit about that, like that whole thing. Probably not, because I think he might have been a sociopath in some way. But so anyway, he showed his cards that day, and he lost a friend.
Yeah, sometimes you just got to close the books on a person. Just don't need you around, man.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Oh boy. So our guest this week is a friend of a friend that I got to talking to through social media, and she had been a part of an organization that I had never heard of. She started telling me a little bit about it. I watched a couple of videos and I was like, oh man, yeah, we got to hear about this. So she's got a really interesting story and experienced some very strange things, but just has like a really great outlook on it.
Yeah.
And I love hearing from people who had bad experiences or weird experiences or could justify being really angry and bitter, but they choose to like find the good things about it, not brush over the bad, not excuse what was done that was wrong or was, improper or whatever, but just, come to grips with the fact that like, these are people that are making these decisions. Maybe they thought they were doing the right thing. Either way, this was the parts of this that I enjoyed and thought were good experiences. So, I think you're really going to enjoy Bianca's story, and we had a lot of fun talking to her.
Yeah.
So,
And if you we're having Bianca on now, a little while ago we had on Jenna, who had another wild story. Honestly, if you have, I don't know, can't promise it'll come to anything. Don't want to make any empty promises. But if you have crazy stories, send them to us. If anything, it'd be super fun to read some of them if you have like a good narrative behind it. Like, just shoot us an email, gucpodcast@gmail.com. Tell us some weird shit. And, we might read it at the top of the episode. Maybe we'll have you on to talk about it. Who knows? But
yeah, if you were in a cult,
there, so.
I want to hear about it. Okay. If you were in the FLDS or the People's Temple, nobody that listens to this was in the People's Temple, but, the Family International, you name it. If you were in a cult of some sort or something people describe as a cult, reach out to me because I would be fascinated to hear from you.
Yeah. And lastly, please, if you can spare a few moments of your time, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, or again, I think that's the only one that takes reviews, but just leave us a review, say something nice, get some more stars up in there, some more 5-star reviews, and hopefully we can keep this thing going.
Do all that stuff for us, please and thank you, and enjoy our conversation with Bianca. And we're back with friend of a friend and new friend to me, Bianca. How's you doing, Bianca?
Oh, so good. Howdy, y'all.
So, one of my best friends is, we have a mutual friend in him. And through, grapevine interactions, we kind of got to talking, and you told me a little bit about your story, and it sounds incredible. So we were really excited to talk to you.
Yeah. So have either of you guys heard of Master's Commission? Like, is this a thing that people know about, or?
I have zero familiarity with it.
Oh,
it was
okay.
a brand new string of words for me.
Okay. So it was sold as like in my youth group. It was sold as this like really cool after high school instead of going to college, because I was going to go to Liberty actually, and I was thinking about going to a few places, and I was like, oh, what do I want to do? And the youth group, my youth pastor at the time, I was super involved in youth group. He was like, oh, have you heard of Master's Commission? It's this like intense discipleship program, and you go on mission trips and you do this thing, and it was this like they did like routines, like play routines, and they did like Stomp. Do you remember Stomp when that was a big thing, like with trash can lids?
Yeah.
Like they came in and did
brooms.
that. Oh yeah, and it was like cool. It was like, I want to be those people.
Did they have a notable founder?
Yeah. So, well, sort of. There's kind of there's some discrepancy with that. But so Phoenix First Assembly of God, I think is, and it's Assemblies of God kind of thing. But they're the ones who like kind of started it. And then, yeah. So, what's his name? Floyd. I don't remember his name. Anyways, but we would do this annual trip to Phoenix, and like that was like the Mecca. Like every Master's Commission came down once a year to Phoenix and did like a voyage to there. Anyways, but yeah, it was sold as this like really cool, intense discipleship thing where you'd go on mission trips and you'd like minister to people and all this stuff. And so naturally I was like, yeah, we get to go travel and we get to go do fun stuff. Yeah, I want to do that. So, so yeah, that's how it was kind of sold to our youth group. And then I had a friend who was going, So I was like, yeah, I'm down to go.
Is it so Lloyd and Chris Ziegler?
Ziegler. Yeah. That's what it was.
Ziegler.
Lloyd Ziegler. Yeah. They
Those
started
names
it. And
don't sound familiar.
And I think they were so the Master's Commission program that I went to had just been taken over by somebody new, but the person before me was really intense, like militant intense. And I think he was more, from what I've gathered from people who were like the class before me, it was like really intense, really traumatic, all that kind of thing, which they're looking back now, I'm like, we did some really weird stuff. Like we might have been zip tied one time. We might have been, taken in a van and we didn't know what we were doing. We might have been forced to stay up all night. And it's very like cult like a lot of people like look at Master's Commission. They're like, oh, it's a cult. And it's like, no, it's not. But I could see where people think that. But now being
that's
like
what people say when they're in cults.
And it does have some
this
definitely like cult tendencies for sure. So
it's like someone explaining to you that their MSM isn't a pyramid scheme.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah,
it's like the inverted funnel.
Yeah, absolutely. And when I hear people talk about it, I'll say this: when I hear people talk about Master's Commission, because a lot of people have had bad experiences. It's kind of like anything. Like you don't hear about good experiences; you hear about bad experiences. From restaurants and things like that. So I feel like a lot of people talk about it. It's a bad experience for me. It was. Looking back now, I see the bad. I see the good. I see where they were trying to figure things out. I see what they were trying to do. Was it all great? No, but I'm kind of level-headed enough to like see through that, whereas some people I think they had bad experiences, and rightly so.
So what they were trying to do was, it was like, so you mentioned it's kind of like a missions thing. It was like, what was like their mission statement? What was the intent of this program?
I want to say it was to know God and make him known, which that just rolled off. So I think that was it.
Yeah,
and
it's
so,
like
it's ingrained in my
part of you it was. It's like what is it when you like activate somebody? The U.S. government uses trigger words to activate.
I think like triggered.
The Manchurian candidate.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what just happened. So to know God and make him known. No, like when I went to Master's Commission, I was like, I'm going to be a missionary. I'm going to like do this thing, and then it was sold as too. You could get you're like a Berean Bible, so it was affiliated with the Assemblies of God. So you could be like a pastor in 2 years. No, so you could get your like Bible degree, or Berean, I think is what it was called. But you can get your like pastor's certificate in 2 years. So some people just went just so that they could like get their pastoral certificate, and then they could move on to like bigger and better things, like become a pastor and go through the Assemblies of God and things like that. So, are you guys familiar with the Assemblies of God at all?
Yeah, I'm only vaguely familiar. I knew people who were part of it. Is that that one's like somewhat Pentecostally, right?
Very,
is it like
very
charismatic and shit?
The biggest Pentecostal charismatic group denomination there is. Yeah. So yeah.
Well, so let's put a pin in Master's Commission for just a second. Can you kind of walk us through growing up?
So I grew up super Christian. So my mom was part of the like Jesus movement. So when I was born, she became a Christian. It was like a whole, you need to go off and do this discipleship thing. So her and my aunt like did a whole thing, went to, I can't remember the name of it, but it was like somewhere where you go off to and like get discipleshiped and stuff. So she did that. So I grew up like literally sleeping under church pews, going to youth group, like doing the whole shebang, every day, every night of the week. Well, my whole life, but every day of the week we were at church. We were at church and we were like doing a thing. And and we grew up in like a super Pentecostal, like people screaming down the aisles kind of church. And
is that where you learned to do backflips?
Yeah, that's where I learned to do backflips. No, y'all. Okay, real story one time. Whether y'all want to share this or not, it's just funny, and I just thought of it. So we're at church one time, and I'm like 9 years old, and we had just gone to this new church. And my mom, she is a character to say the least, but she's at this church and she's like singing in the worship band. which was, a thing. She's like singing the worship band. And she had this like feeling and this like word from the Lord, right? So she's like, I need to give this word from the Lord. And it was about being transparent and honesty. Well, at that time, and still today, she wears wigs, like, like wigs on your head. So she's giving this like word from the Lord. And she's like, I just really feel like the church needs to be honest and the church needs to be authentic. And she was like, we need to come before the Lord like this. And she gets her wig. This is like, she's on the stage. She takes it off, right? So you know how people look when they don't have wigs on. And like that's my mom. She's just like, no wig, matted hair. And she was like, and everybody's like, oh. Anyways, that is my mother. That is what I grew up with. And that is like sums up, like Christianity as a child for me. It was like, but yeah.
Intense. What intense. Part of the country?
In Texas. So I'm born and raised in Texas. So, and I lived in the Bible Belt, which was like Northeast Texas. Like it was a dry county. You can't buy liquor. It was there's a church on every corner. It's just like what you did.
It seems like oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, was your dad involved in the church too? What's that?
No.
Dynamic?
Okay. So that was like a constant thing in my childhood so I moved away from my dad, and it was always like, we're praying for your dad because he needs Jesus kind of thing, which eventually he actually did find Jesus. And so that's been really good for him, to each his own. But yeah, so no, my mom like kind of took me away and we kind of did our own thing with my aunt. And then, so.
Okay.
It seems like that whole Jesus movement thing, like it was like started in California.
Yes.
And then, like a lot of the extreme groups that were involved in that, because that's a real mixed bag. Plenty of normal, decent stuff came out of that, and then there was the others, you know. And a lot of them went through Texas. Like, oh man, there's so many like Children of God went through Texas. Whichever one. The unnecessary tangent, but serial killer was Henry Lee Lucas.
Oh, Henry Lee Lucas. We talk about him all the time at work. That's so funny. Yeah, it totally. But no, yeah. So my aunt was a part of that California Jesus movement. So then she, of course, called my mom in Texas and was like, you need to come do this, blah, blah, blah. And this was 1980, 4 or 5. So yeah, it was a big deal. So I definitely grew up Christian. But my mom was a single parent. So it was like, we always looked to the church. Like we were always at the church helping or getting free stuff from the church because we didn't have very much money, or like we would help in there. We had this building at the church that was like for the people in need. And so we were always helping there to like give people in need, but then we would like low-key take some groceries at the end, So we were definitely like that family.
Well, I feel like if you're that family that invests back into the church, then that's kind of like the point of those programs. I feel like it's like you invest in the church, your time and your work and your effort and sweat. And in return, like the church helps out with your basic needs. I mean, that's like the kind of stuff where I feel like churches are at their best is when it's a community that's taking care of its own.
Yeah. And I agree. And that's why, like, I'm not somebody who's like, oh, I hate the church or I hate what it's doing. Or I think every organization, every big organization, any organization gets things wrong. And I'm human. I get a lot of things wrong. And so, yeah, do we get a lot of things wrong? Absolutely. But do we get a lot of things right? And do we care for people? And do we love people? And do we do this? Then yeah, I think we get that right a lot of times too. So I think you got to eat the meat, spit out the bones a lot of times.
So church was very important to you on a personal level too, then whole childhood?
Yeah. So that is where all my social circle was at, like middle school. It was like church, group and other church groups. And, so that's how I found out about Master's Commission was through my youth group. And I am very like social, if y'all haven't noticed. And so it's like wherever that social circle was, like I was going to be. So if it was all at church, then that's what we're doing. That's what we're doing. If it's motorcycles or whatever. So, yeah.
What was your school situation, being social and having such a social tight like social circle within the church? Was that did you have like your public school thing and then the church, and then you had to kind of pick between two worlds, if that even occurred to you?
Yeah, so I grew up in public school in San Antonio, which is a huge city, San Antonio, Texas. And then when I was 9, I moved to a very small town, Bible Belt, Northeast Texas. And that was my mom, my aunt was like, oh, you should put her in private school. And so, of course, my mom being like, yeah, we should do that. So they put me in this Christian private school. And that was interesting because I was like in this very Northeast Texas, very white, very suburban area. And I was like literally the only like Latin person in the entire school. And so that in itself was like its own experience. And we were like so to pay for this tuition, my mom was like, oh, well, I'll clean the church. So it had a lot of stigma on it. It was like, oh, we're like the cleaning people for the church. And we went here. And, like there was just like kind of all that weirdness. So, and everybody that had gone to that school had gone to that school since they were like kindergarten. So, and I came in at like 5th grade. So it was like, oh, hey, I'm the new person and I'm like not white and this is weird. And I don't even know, So, but I went there from 5th grade to 8th grade. And then in 9th grade, I was like, I got to go back to public school. So I convinced my mom to put me back in public school. And that was another fiasco. Cause then I realized that was just the culture of the area that we lived in, like this Northeast Texas. Like it wasn't just the church, it was just the culture. So I went to that school and I didn't fit in anywhere. Like I was like, well, the white people don't like me and the Mexicans don't like me. And this is awkward. I don't know what to do. Take me out of here. So
like a bunch of Texarkana mouth breathers.
That's exactly what it is. Yes. If you've been to Texarkana, yes, that's exactly, Casey, what it is.
You guys have a great serial killer.
Yes.
It was before our time.
Yeah.
Never caught.
I don't remember his name, but yeah, no, it's very backwoods, very, country bumpkin. Yeah. So that's kind of what that was like. So then when I found youth group, it was like, oh, I found people that actually like accept me, and my youth pastor was really awesome. So of course I got really engaged just because these people I could like jive with, and it was fun, and it was somewhere where I could like be myself kind of. So for me, youth group was like the shit because it was like I had people, So
with the culture being super Christian, like when you said you started going to public school and the culture that was the culture. I imagine it was a pretty just religious, like at least pseudo religious culture. Like it was like shifting from Christian school to public school. Everyone's still like probably involved in a church in some way, or
it was really the same. It's funny how everyone's Christian. Everyone. Doesn't matter if you're smoking pot, doesn't matter if you're doing coke in the bathroom, doesn't matter if you're what you're doing. Everyone's Christian and goes to church on Sunday. Like not just says they're Christian, but they're going to be there. And that was the culture. You could get drunk on Saturday, you could do whatever you want, but then on Sunday you better be at church.
I could see Texas, like East Texas. I worked in East Texas a bunch over the past like 6 or 7 years here. And I could see that being really challenging to be a person who's not white in those environments. Like, East Texas, Carthage, Carthage?
Oh, I know Carthage. So if you know Carthage, that's Longview, man. That is
Carthage. Carthage is the last place in my memory banks where I heard aggressive N-word usage.
Yeah, that's Longview. Yeah,
it was like hair on the back of your neck stand up. We were doing a cold call. So we're there in a work context, we go in to talk to this. It's 2 brothers that own this like Jiffy Lube type place. And they weren't from there. They were from New York, or they traveled back and forth from New York or something. But this guy, it was bizarre, man. It was 2 brothers. They were kind of like Jersey Shore looking guys. Like they look like they really idolized those dudes. Yeah. Same hair and all that. And the one dude was a quote unquote model. And in the waiting room of the shop, he had a picture of him shirtless hanging in the waiting room.
in his own waiting room, he had a picture of himself. Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
That's nice. Yeah.
And the guy came down and we're talking to him and stuff. And we're, about all the things that we sell and everything. And he's like, yeah, well, that stuff's never going to work around here because bleep, a bleep, a bleep, a bleep. And we were just like, oh, where are we?
You're like, am I about to get shot? Yeah, it's very much, it's very closed-minded. It's very much, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And nothing changes and nothing moves and everything stays still and stagnant. And anybody who tries to start a new business, it basically fails, because nobody likes new. So that is like that small East Texas culture. So yeah, it's great. It's great.
So youth group was that kind of like a sanctuary from that to some extent?
Absolutely. And so when my youth pastor was like, hey, you should, they were super awesome. Like that youth pastor and youth pastor's wife, like I mean, even today, I'm like, they were amazing people. They genuinely were like just trying to help kids and genuinely like providing a space to like love on them. And that's it. And they were just trying to be like, include everybody. I'm like, those are the kind of Christians and those are the kind of people that I'm like, hey, you're doing it right. You're doing great. Like keep doing that, because I just felt like they really did that well. But yeah, they were like, oh, you should go here. You should go to Master's Commission. You should do this. And so I was like, okay, then I should do that. Let me do that.
So Master's Commission, when they were actively like recruiting young people, they had like a team or something that went out to youth groups.
Yeah. And so then there was like a whole application process. So it's like this extensive application, and you have to, it's kind of like applying for college. You're like applying for this thing. And you're like, am I going to get this? Am I going to like be in? So you have to fill out all this stuff and do this thing and, submit it. And then you're like, well, am I going to get accepted? So I did. And I was like, oh, well, I got accepted. So I need to go to this. I later found out that basically everyone gets accepted. So at that point, they were just like looking for people to like apply, and then they would take them. So, which I get, but if there's an application process,
college.
Yeah. So it was like, so there's no scholarships or anything. And yeah, it's like $5,000. I think it was $5,000. I was trying to think about how much it was. It was either $5,000 or $6,000, because they provided like dorms and housing, and that would pay for your food, and that would pay for, your basic needs. But basically what Master's Commission like was, they focused on like what you like servant leadership kind of thing. So it was housed at a church. And so the church had a dorm. And so we were kind of like workers for the church. Like, so every afternoon we would like go do church work, and we would help with the youth group, and we would create their props, and we would help with this or that or maintenance. Like we would trim hedges, and we would garden the garden, and it was kind of like, hey, this is what servant leadership is. It's
like a year-long domestic missions trip.
Yeah, basically. And so that's kind of what we did. And then every morning we would like have to, like, our schedule was like get up for prayer in the morning at 8, which I always was like asleep in. And I'm just like trying to stay awake because we had stayed up so late the night before doing whatever task we needed to do. And then it was like the Bible school portion. And then it was like help the church do whatever. And then you were assigned like a thing. So if you were assigned like the missions team or the administrative team or the groundskeeping team or whatever, the youth group team, and you would go do these different teams. So like the missions team, you would go call churches and ask if they wanted us to come and do these like skits and plays, like a little like traveling circus kind of thing. We would go to these like churches and do these like performances, like the stomp performance. Like there's a video out on YouTube right now of me like doing, like shaking some trash can lids around.
Oh, I gotta see that.
I know, right? But yeah, it was like that. And I think we did that, I think, for recruiting. And that was kind of like a ministry in a way. Sort of.
You know who like this reminds me of, like some of this model is Pensacola Christian College.
Oh, we went there.
Oh, did you? Did they ever send reps to your school or youth group or anything?
So they sent reps to our youth group. And then in our youth group, we went there to Pensacola College. And yeah, absolutely. Like we would do like do you guys know what human videos are? Do you know this? Do you know this?
Okay. You mentioned these to me, and I looked them up on YouTube, and so uncomfortable. Like it was just the most bizarre things ever.
So we would go into like high schools. So part of them, like missions team, we would call schools like of all sorts, like not Christian schools. And we'd be like, hey, do you want us to like come in and do this thing? And we couldn't, like say God or Jesus or whatever. So instead we would do like these like human videos where it would be like this cool song that was like secular, right? But we would do this like human video, like Jesus thing, cross to it. And then we'd be like, hey, if you want to come hang out with us, we're going to be over here. And we'd invite them to like this address, which would be like our youth group at a church, and be like, hey, come hang with us. And it was our way of like ministering or whatever to like secular people, trying to like win the lost, as you always are doing when you're a Christian, And so, that would be like a thing we did when we like went on mission. So
it's kind of like interpretive dance.
It is
set to a modern song.
It is. And and I mean, actually we did some pretty cool ones. So there's a few times, because we're always trying to be like edgy, right? So we'd, I can't remember what song it was, but it was like a secular song, but we like did a whole dance routine to it. And so like people saw us and they're like, oh, they're cool. Like I want to be them. I want to go find out about them. So we were like kind of always on the edge of like trying to be cool so you could kind of come be like us. But really we were Christians. So like that, bam, bam, surprise.
That's very Jesus movement. It's like have a traveling hippie band that performs at the beach, and then you sucker people into coming back to the...
Yeah, you sucker people in. You're like, hey, this is what I do.
Did you ever have like the people who came? Did you ever have people who had no affiliation with a Christian background or like a Christian culture be like, I'm really interested in this? Or was it very much like people who had an understanding of it that were kind of like took that as an opportunity to like really just jump in?
I think as far as like when we went to youth groups and stuff, is that what you're asking?
Well, you said you went to like some school. Did you go to schools and stuff too?
Yeah. We went to schools too. So that's what I'm asking. So at schools, people would come. Like when we would do a thing and be like, hey, come to this thing, they would come. And then they would be like, oh, this is like a church thing. Cool. This is cool. But here's the downfall about that, is that then we were gone the next week. So then we were like, the cool kids were gone. And then it was like, hey, bye. Have fun with this.
You didn't just kidnap all the ones who were interested?
No, but we should have. So let me tell you guys about my kidnapping story, actually. So one morning we're sitting in like prayer. So every morning we had prayer at like 8 a.m. So we're sitting in prayer. I'm half asleep because I never stayed awake. And so all of a sudden, some people come into the church, because we're in the church praying. They come in with masks on. They come in with guns. They come in with everything. Yeah, this is like a real, like we don't know any different, right? No, this is really a thing. They come in, they kidnap us, they blindfold us, they zip tie our hands, and they put us in a van. And we don't know we don't know what's going on. And I mean, it's serious in all of our world, because we're like, what? We always talk about the persecuted church, right? That's a thing. But we've never like experienced this. And so we're like in this van. I vividly remember we're zip tied, hands are zip tied, like blindfolds, and like a few people are crying. I'm just like sitting there observing it, but a few people are like crying. And then we hear like somebody getting hit, somebody getting beat. We're like, okay, this is intense. Like what's going on? Yeah, this is really happened. So,
oh my God.
So we then get to this like outside area. We walk in a field. We have guns pointed at our backs. Like we're just like, what is happening? And it's very real. And then they're like, then they start talking about like, do you love Jesus? Blah 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 blah. Like give up your faith, right? I know. Sam, everything. Your reaction right now said everything. Yes. So then to come to find out, the whole thing is just like a play. To kind of see, like, how are we going to respond if somebody questions our faith? How are you going to respond if somebody puts you in that predicament? How are you going to, and it's just like, I don't know if that was the healthiest thing.
That is insane.
What the
It was
fuck?
intense.
That is far from, it's like the opposite of healthy. That is so traumatizing and damaging.
It
And
is,
also,
and
if someone points a gun at, like, I remember that feeling as a kid, like being told, because is like a Bible verse. It's like, if, like, when Jesus says, like, if you deny the
yes,
Father, then I'll deny you, whatever. So you're like, always like, oh, if that's
You're
your
like-
last minute, if you're like, do you believe in Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior? And you're like, no. And then
yes.
then you have to like live with that, and you're like, I'm probably going to hell. You either just
No.
get shot in the fucking forehead, or you go to hell for all of eternity.
Yes. Okay, I need that line that Sam just said to be like the intro to this whole podcast. Like, I'd rather get shot in the fucking forehead.
Dude, they were like churches at that time, and I don't know, maybe some of them still are, but they were obsessed with this idea that like someone was going to point a gun in your face and command you to like deny Jesus in front of it. Was like they were obsessed with that Columbine story, which I don't even know if that's completely factual the way it was told to us and stuff.
Well, and
it's
I think
just bizarre.
I think there was a big fear, and I don't know where that stems from. I'd be really curious. So in the interview you guys did with Bethany, I don't remember her last name.
Slater?
Yes, Bethany Slater. That was a really good one. Listening to that interview, which I loved how much it made me as a Christian. So I call myself a Christian. Like today, I would say like I love and believe in Jesus. It really made me like kind of look at myself and think about a lot of things, which I loved. I'm like, I love that she's like making me think about so many things. But one of the things is like that, like, why is the way things are, why was that such a big deal? Why was it such a big deal for that time in Christianity for people to be like, if you're going to be persecuted, you need to know where how you're going to stand, and what brought that on, that it was I don't know. I want to know the backstory of that.
Especially when, Peter denied Jesus 3 times and still went on to do some good shit. So like,
still, right?
That's
I know.
true.
That's what I'm saying. I'm really banking on that, Sam. So
you get 3 chances. Shit, so. If you do it a 4th time, though, it's just guillotine.
You're fucking out.
Nah, bro. You going to hell. Did you ever read Jesus Freaks?
I did. I read Jesus Freak. I listened to DC Talk. I listened to all the things. By the way, the Kiss Dating Goodbye, read that book. That was a good interview, by the way. Also. But yeah.
Man, that is like, that's one of the craziest youth group stories I've ever heard. That's just absolutely nuts.
That should be a crime, right? Like that has to actually be an illegal act.
Well, you can't do that to people. But here was the thing. Though. So it was in Master's Commission. So in Master's Commission,
it was in the waiver you signed when you signed up?
Yeah, no, it was. It was kind of like whatever they said was the rule. There was no, so another thing that we did, let me tell you guys, was called House of Fear, which was this like, I'm sure you can guess, this very Christian, but you didn't know, haunted house. And so, Hell House, very similar. Yeah. So it was like, we had people shooting up the place. We had the little girl from, what's the girl, the creepy girl,
The Ring.
Yes. The Ring girl.
We had all the Samara.
Samara. Yeah. We had the Ring girl. We had we funded this, right? So it's all this money. We had sold tickets. We got lots of poison ivy because we tried to decorate the whole building in ivy and it was all poison. Anyways, and so, but then towards the end of the House of Fear, it's like, hey, what if you died tonight and blah, 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 blah. Like, so that was a whole thing we did. Like it was, yeah. And we stayed up like till 4 a.m. every night. And then we're up at 6 a.m. like doing a thing. So we were just like, we're machines. It's workhouses. It was intense.
Was there an abortion exhibit in your haunted house?
Yes, there was an abortion exhibit. Come on, you know. Yeah. I'm trying to remember what that one was. I think it was a car wreck. No, it was like a car wreck and then an abortion. I don't know. There was lots of scenes. It was actually a pretty decent haunted house, I will say. I was pretty proud of it. But I remember, so we worked on this every night for months, right? And we would have this time where the director would say that it's like whenever you heard, what is the name of that song? The Rocky song. The dun, dun,
Eye of the
dun,
Tiger?
Eye of the Tiger. Thank you. Eye of the Tiger. So whenever Eye of the Tiger came on, you had to run everywhere. There was no, like, we would be working, but then when Eye of the Tiger came on, you had to run. Like whatever you were doing, it was run and do that. Do this fast. Do this fast. So we're like getting ready for this, House of Fear. And it was like Eye of the Tiger would come on every 5 songs, like we learned, because it was like that's what would keep us awake to like do this thing. So we were very much like little workhorses. Yeah.
This is a little bit of a pivot.
I
but
love
in the
pivots.
haunted, it's a detour. It's in the haunted house theme though. Are either of you familiar with the McKay Manor or Macamee or something like that? Macamee.
Never heard of it.
It's like this guy started this haunted house where he has he'll give you like, it's like one person goes through at a time. There's like a huge waiting list for it. You have to be 21 and up. You sign a waiver. And if you get through it, he will give you $20,000. He's just like this weird rich guy.
Okay, I know a little. I think about this.
Yeah,
like it's way over the top, and
it's like physically violent. Like they will actually like harm you to a certain degree.
Wait, what is it called? The McV?
Like,
what is it?
It's like Macamee or something like that.
McGee Manor.
McGee Manor. Okay. I'm gonna do it.
But I just like, I don't know. Every time I think of haunted houses, that's the first thing that comes to my mind, because there's like this feeling of I bet I could do that. It's like there's so few people who have like this strong enough will to even knowing it's fake. Just the feeling of like even any degree of physical harm. You could just poke me with a stick, and I'd think you just got me with a hot poker, and I'm about to die, and it would be immediately over.
That's funny.
Well, it's like everybody, every youth group, every school group had like over the top guy.
Oh, absolutely.
Did you guys have over the top guy?
Oh, absolutely. Steven, his name was. Oh, absolutely. Over the top
Mine's
guy.
name was Adam.
Oh,
and
okay.
He was like, let's just say he was a couple cards short of a deck, and he hurt someone at every activity. He would end up with somebody crying because he like busted him. Like one time we went to. There's this thing in Michigan called Domino's Farms, and it was some sort of Domino's pizza headquarters or something. And their big claim to fame was every year they did this super extravagant Christmas light display that you drove through. And I remember we did a youth group activity there where we drove through, and then we were going to have delicious Domino's pizza that's been sitting there all day. And I remember I was in the back of the church van, like some of my buddies and I were back there, and Adam is in like the next seat up, and we're like goofing around and stuff. I made fun of him for something, and the middle seat always had that long seat buckle with the big mass on the end of it.
Yeah.
So he takes that and just wails me in the head with it. I mean, like, I'm surprised it didn't split my head open. He hit me so hard. Like, just right. He's over the top guy. He's like that guy. Like, you definitely know that when he got married, he shoved cake in his bride's hair for sure.
I could think of a few more places, but yeah, for sure in the hair. Yeah.
The dude that like aggressively dunks people at the pool party. To the point where people are like coughing and choking.
Like, I'm drowning. He's like, let's keep going. Yeah. That's funny.
That's the guy I would worry about in the haunted house, though. Like the guy that like actually skewers you with a poker or stabs you with the key.
So funny you say that. So we kind of had an over the top guy in the haunted house. We'll just call him Paul. So Paul, we were cleaning up some stuff one day, and he thought, I don't know where he got this idea from, but Casey, you probably know, because I feel like this is a little bit of your business, that if you light diesel fuel on fire that it will just clean up and it won't burn anything. It just like evaporates. But that's not the case. That's not the case at all.
No.
That's not the case. That's why you're giving me these looks. It's because that's not the case.
It's the opposite of that.
It's the opposite. It's the opposite. Yep, that's the right answer. So he like put diesel all over, and then he lit it on fire because he thought that somehow it would like just evaporate and go away, and it didn't. It caused a fire. That's over the top, guy. Did
anybody get hurt?
No, we like immediately, because it was like while we were like doing like setting up. So I was like, no, what are you doing? What are you doing? Like, and yeah, we immediately put it out. So, but yeah,
burned the ceiling carpet in the church van.
Yeah, he was like, no, I thought this would clean up. Somebody told me it like evaporates right up, and it's like, no, it's not how that works. But yeah. So wait, did you guys? I don't remember. So in Liberty, Sam, did you go to Liberty too? No. Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yes, you did. Both of y'all did. So in Master's Commission, like you could not be in the same room with the opposite sex or sit with the opposite sex alone. Yeah, no, anything. You couldn't do anything. You had to be in like groups if you were going to be in the opposite sex. But even then, if you like we could not date the opposite sex our whole first year in Master's Commission. Like that's not allowed. You're not allowed
to look at a boy. A group?
Like more than 6 people.
More than 6?
So yeah, you'd have to have people.
You got to rule out threesomes, foursomes, fivesomes. You know,
well, dude, 3 couples together on a thing.
But I know, yeah. Unfortunately, that never happened. You know, I didn't think about that till now. But yeah. So wait, you guys could like date people. Because y'all were like ring before spring, right? Is that what that's what you were trying to do? Trying to like lock them.
Heavy emphasis on finding it. It was at the same time. It was like, don't date anyone because you should focus on God. And on the other hand, like you should get married, marry someone,
like
do it now.
Marry someone when you're 19, when you don't know shit. Yes.
I think we all had those friends that sabotaged decent relationships because they went too far that one night and thought they needed to break up and focus on the
Lord. Oh my gosh. Yes. And you're like, oh my gosh, I sinned. I made out too much and I'm a sinful person. Now I'm shameful about it. And now I need to break up with you because we've crossed the line. Like this is not honoring God. Absolutely. I know. I think about the guilt and the shame, so much shame, I feel like was a part of that world. Okay. So fast forward, I got kicked out of Bible school, out of Master's Commission because juicy, right?
You were in the same room as a guy accidentally. You both walked into like a 7-Eleven and there was 2 guys and the cashier and it was over. You guys.
It's over. That sounds like a bad, oh no, don't make that reference, Bianca. Nope, stop. Okay, bring it back. That would be too dirty.
No, go ahead. Let's see where you're going to take this.
I was going to make a 2 girls, 1 cup reference, which I know, Casey, you can take off this whole thing, so that's fine.
Oh no, this is gold. We'll keep it.
Anyways, so it's after my second year, which means like a second year you could date people. Second year you could do whatever you want. I didn't date anybody, but and so after my second year, me and a friend who I will not mention, it's like the summer. It's right before our 3rd year. So Master's Commission was one of those things where it was kind of framed as a 2-year program, but then once you got in it, you realized there was a 3rd year and they were like the elders. Then there was staff and that was like holy water. And then you could be like on staff and that was like really cool, the bread and butter. And so once you got in, you're like, oh, well, maybe I want to stay. So we're trying to go for our 3rd year. Well, we went out and my cousin at the time owned a bunch of clubs in Austin on 6th Street, which is pretty famous, like Bar Street. So anyways, we go out. We get carried away. So we're staying at the dorm. So we come both in like drunk, like bad, throwing up in the elevator, drunk. And so one of the staff members finds us in the elevator, like puking on ourselves. And so then the next day it's like, oh crap, we like got drunk. This is not allowed. This is definitely not allowed. Right. And so it was this weird come to Jesus moment the next day, because then the director's sitting with me and he's like, hey, you are not going to be allowed back to Master's Commission. Like, I'm kicking you out. And I remember sitting there, we were like in his car. I don't know why we're in his car, but we're in his car.
Yeah.
And
so I hope this doesn't take a dark turn.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah,
it doesn't.
seriously.
No. Cool dude. Doesn't take dark turn. We're in his car and I'm sitting there and I remember being like, is this a joke? Like, is this, because I had fixated so much on like, I'm here, this is what I'm doing, this is God's call, right? So I'm sure you guys have heard of God's call, right, on your life. And so I felt like this is where I'm supposed to be. And then all of a sudden it was like gone in a second because I got drunk one night. That is crazy. Is that real life? So then after that, it was very like, oh, well, this is done. And so it was like, it was kind of, it took me a couple of years to kind of get over that. It was really sad. But then what sucks about it is my friend who got drunk with me, she didn't get kicked out. I was so mad.
Why?
Because she confessed and I didn't.
You thought maybe you could get away with it?
I wasn't drunk. I ate some bad seafood.
Bring in the Master's Commission, forensic team, and if you can prove it's my puke.
I was like, I'm just not going to say anything and act like this didn't happen. Oops. And then she, like, I guess the next day confessed and told them, like, hey, we went out, blah, 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 blah. Which back then I went by a different name, so nobody's ever going to recognize me. So, which is great.
Liberty loved encouraging people to narc on each other. Like, that was their MO. If they knew two people in a party, they'd bring you in separate and do the whole there's like a good cop, bad cop kind of deal, and like
that's exactly good cop, bad. That's exactly what happened. And when I went in, like, because the director talked to me first, I was like, I don't know. I just played dumb the whole time. And I guess she told him. She went in and felt guilty and said everything. And I was like, I think we went out. Like trying to be cool.
You just didn't show enough. There was just not enough self-loathing there to keep you in the program.
Probably, yeah. And so I will say this, though. The directors at that time, thinking back now, like I was 18, 19, 20. I was 18, 19. And they were only 3 years older than me, which means they were like 23, 24. Do you guys know how y'all don't know shit at 23 and 24? Can you guys think of what your 23, 24-year-old selves look like?
Yep. I still believed a lot of this stuff.
Exactly.
So if that says anything.
Yeah. But at the same time, like, you didn't know shit. And so I think about them now and I think of, and I have compassion. I'm like, you were literally just trying to figure out this shit. You did not know. And you were trying to lead a group of like 50 people and you did not know. And you were just doing the best you could with what you know, which is exactly what all of our parents were always trying to do, right? You look at your fucked up childhood and you're like, you were literally just trying to do the best you could with what you knew. I get it now.
Yeah.
I get it now and I give all the grace.
Like, what's the structure like above these guys? Because these guys are the ones that, like, they're post third year, right? These are permanent staff.
Yeah. So there was one lady who she had been there with the previous Master's Commission director who was like militant and crazy. That's the guy that people have like a lot of trauma over. And she kind of was like helping. She was kind of older. She was like 10 years older than the director. And she was kind of helping him because he was like 23, 24. And, but their overseers were like the church, but I don't know how much overseeing happened. Cause like, we would really just do whatever the director said. Like, he was the guy who made the rules. And so if he said, we're going on this trip, we're jumping off this bridge, like, we're doing it. Like, and that's just what we're doing. So it was kind of weird in that regard. But that was just how it went. And you never questioned anything. Like, it was like, if he said something, you were never like, oh, well, that kind of sounds odd. No, you went with it because that was the rule. So it was
like, what role did exhaustion play in like keeping everyone in line and compliant and stuff?
I would say we were always exhausted. Like literally, because I think Mondays was our day off, I think. And then it was, because Sundays we worked all day long. Like it was like, because we were setting up church for the regular church.
On
And
the
this church had,
Sabbath? Oh my
on the
God.
Sabbath, I know,
How
right?
could you?
But so on Sunday, we were like setting up for church, then doing 3 services, and we served in these services, right? So you guys know about like serving in church. So we did all that stuff. And then there was like an afternoon luncheon always, either like a men's luncheon or a ladies' luncheon that we were like serving meals at. And then we would like do Sunday youth group after that. So Sundays were full. And then Mondays were like our day off, which was like we had barely time to do laundry, or if like there was always consequences if we were late in the morning. So we'd have to do stuff on Monday, like serve more somewhere. And then the rest of the week, it was like all day events. And we'd have like a master's commission family that we'd go like have dinner with on Thursdays. And there was just something like every night of the week that we always did. So there was really no room to just like, you barely got your laundry done. And then you were like trying to wake up to go to the next thing the next morning. So
that's like classic cult tactic.
Yeah. And
like,
then you had to make
keep
sure
people hungry, keep them exhausted, keep them busy 100% of the time.
Yeah. And then you always had to keep your shit clean. Like you still had to like so still to this day, like right now today, like in master's commission, you always had to wipe the sink down when you had to wipe your area down, whatever area you used. And still today, like I wipe the sink down and wipe down everything after I use it. Cause I'm like, okay, now it's clean. Now I can like continue after brushing my teeth, just because like, that's what we did. And that's what I did for like 3 years or 2 years, I guess. But it just was like something ingrained every day you do. So
now, like, okay, the super militant guy was in his early to mid 20s. And it sounds like, yeah, like he had a lasting effect on some people. Do you remember hearing any of the stories? Like, what was it that made him out of control?
He was insane. I think he was definitely cultastic. Oh, I love that word, cultastic. Yeah. He was definitely the guy that was militant and made you do this and made you like kind of guided on shame and guilt. And I heard stories of, people, babysitting his kids all the time and doing this all the time for their family, kind of like servants for his personal family, so that he could like lead the cause and make sure he was serving Jesus and make sure he was like doing this thing. And I look at that and I'm like, maybe he was just like skewed and messed up and he really thought he was doing the right thing. I like to give people the benefit of the doubt. So that's a flaw of mine. But it's like, maybe he was really trying, like, and he was like, he thought he was doing like the will of God, in this way. But looking at some of the things like, so there's one blog, it's called My Cult Life. And that's Lisa Kerr. She has a lot of stories and a lot of things about that previous director that are on par and legit and terrible. And she had a terrible experience. So
wow. Was there any allegations of abuse against this guy that you've heard, or?
A little bit, but more emotional abuse, I would say. But definitely like psychological and emotional abuse. He knew how to manipulate and he knew how to do things. But I'll say that like my director, and maybe that's why they got a new director, because the director that I came into, I was like the first year of his like, he wasn't like that. Like I follow him on Instagram today just because I'm like, yeah, I think you were trying to figure it out. You're trying to do the right thing. I think you were following the crowd in some ways and the leadership that was given to you, because Masters Commission has like an overseer network also, the Masters Commission International Network. And so I think he was just kind of following on trend what he saw them do.
You don't have to run cover for this scumbag.
I know, right? you guys, I'm so fair-minded, and like I just try to be like, well, he was probably just trying to do the best he could, like.
I get it, because at that age I was like, I was still in the I would have had maybe an issue with the type of rules that this master's thing had. And even when I was at Liberty, I was like, they go a little too far. But if I was ever in a position of leadership at an institution that I believed in, even if I didn't agree with everything that all the rules that they had on people,
Yeah.
I would have at that point been like, I don't know. My hands are tied. Rules are rules. Like, you're not, what's he going to do? Just like leave. I mean, yeah, he could leave the job. That would be nice if people came to the realization that programs like that are maybe not as effective as they would like to think. But I could have been like that too. So it's easy for me to be at least a little empathetic towards that.
Well, yeah, it's like the RAs at Liberty,
exactly.
It was like there was rules in place, and some people are just really, they can't discern, they can't look at the rules in terms of like a hierarchy. Like, hey man, it's like not having your bed made is not the same as like showing up 2 hours late for curfew. Like, those are not the same thing. They do not deserve the same level of scrutiny. But some people just can't look at things that way. It's like, well, this is what it says, and I have to do what it says, and you didn't do what it says.
Well, and especially you have those people that are exactly like that, where it's like, no, I have to follow the rules. I have to do this, and I have to, and if I don't, then who am I? I'm going to be this rule follower because that's who I am. So, yeah, absolutely.
So, okay, maybe this is I don't mean this in an ugly way, or like I'm not trying to be unfair to like what those people do, but like, where's the money at in this thing?
Right. That's what I wonder. I actually thought about this recently. So we each pay $5 or $6,000. I don't remember.
Per year.
Per year, yeah. And so times, and some of that's for the Bible course we took. So I think maybe
the fully accredited Bible course you took.
Yes. Yeah. Let me tell you guys, let me confess something. I just took those books to Half Price Books last year.
Wow. You're just saving them for a rainy day.
I was like, well, maybe I should keep this.
You should have sent them to us. We would have perused those. Like,
oh my gosh. Oh, you know what you guys would love though? I have this book called, what is it called? It's literally volume 1, volume 2. And it's like growing. It's not called Growing Up Christian. It's called like a men's Christianity or something like that. And it's specifically for men. And it's this lesson that's like volume 1, volume 2, very articulately written, like following the Bible and what does it look like to be a man and be biblical. And anyways, it's interesting. I don't know why I have it, but I've kept it for you. But whatever. I just think it's interesting.
Henceforth and furthermore, your penis is a curse.
Yes, and you should never touch it. You should absolutely never touch your penis. No. So wait, I got sidetracked. What were we talking
about? You hawking your books.
Okay, money. You were talking about money. I got it. I'm on it. I'm on it.
How much did the director get paid? That's what we want to know. How much did he get paid to kick you out?
I don't think very much. That's because, okay, so they lived in like a church house. So, and I mean, recently the church just sold that house and the Austin market's really good. So I think they sold it for like $1 million, but back then it was not that much.
The ministry's no longer worth it.
Yeah, the ministry is definitely not worth it. That master's commission program does not exist in Austin, Texas anymore because it was not worth it because it wasn't bringing any money, I don't think. So, we were paying $5 or $6,000, but it's like, we're also the church little slaves. Like we would help with every men's luncheon, every women's luncheon, the church that we were at was a pretty big church that would feed the church staff every day. So we would like help clean up, help prep that, we literally were like lunch team. And every day there was a different team where we'd go down an hour before and like help make all the food for lunch for all the church staff. And then we'd go help them in their different tasks, like whether it was that finance, accounting, whatever, like we were like the helpers in that. So I feel like we paid for this thing, but we were also having to work for this thing. So
right. I'd say that's like a classic model for that sort of thing. It's,
yeah.
we can run the church basically at no cost and charge the people that were having do all the work.
Yeah.
And
And
then,
maybe,
whatever offerings you bring in are just,
above and
that
beyond.
cheddar.
Yeah. Cheddar.
I know, because you're working. And it's, you could see it from the flip side of like being a younger person getting into it, thinking like this is a good training program. I'm sure it wasn't accredited, but it's like if it's a 2-year program and $5 or $6 grand a year. I mean, $5 or $6 grand a year for room and to have a place to live and eat is you spend more than $5 or $6 grand a year on that normally. So like you could.
Yeah. And I think so, Sam, it was accredited, just so you know.
No way.
It was accredited through the Assemblies of God. So you got an Assemblies of God, like at the end of 2 years, you could be an Assemblies of God pastor.
So it's not accredited.
You could be talking to an Assemblies of God pastor right now. I'm just saying.
I will consider you my pastor from here forward.
I didn't do that. After the 2 years, I was like, I'm not doing that.
Dude, that's kind of like Pensacola was similar, though. I mean, they operated as a college, but like it was pretty low tuition. You lived on campus, you worked on campus, like you had to pitch in and do things around the school and stuff very similar. And when you were done, you got a degree from an institution that was not accredited and was worth nothing.
Well, yeah. And that was, I guess, the difference with like, at least you got like an Assemblies of God accreditation.
They were like, that's why it's cheap. It's reasonably priced because it's worthless.
Yeah.
Pensacola, that is.
It forces people to stay within the denomination.
Casey, did you ever go to the like Pensacola revival? Did you go to that? Do you know what that is?
No, I've only like just heard stories about how weird Pensacola was on campus.
So I went at the height of like the Pensacola revival, which is like a huge Pentecostal movement thing, people slaying in the spirit kind of thing. And I don't know how much you guys know about like the Pentecostal movement, but
I know about being slain in the spirit.
Do you?
I mean, not personally. It's never happened to me.
Is that where Benny Hinn hits you with his sport coat? You fall over and shake?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's it.
Yeah. So in 2000, I was in youth group then. So I was like in 9th or 10th grade. Our youth group took a trip to the Pensacola like revival to kind of go see what it's about. And this was our like mission trip, or I don't know what it was. But we went there to kind of experience God. That's what it was, to go experience God. And yeah, it was intense. Which we had kind of, the church we were part of had that element to it. But going there, it was like element times 50, like it was like, which, it's like with anything. I'll say this. So you go to like some metal concert, Casey, and you jump in and what is it? Like a mosh pit, and everybody's getting crazy, and some good song comes on and everybody gets real crazy, right? It's the same thing. It's like people get moved by things. And so I think part of it is one thing, but part of it's just like, yeah, this song is playing and yeah, this thing is doing. So yeah, we're going to get like into it. We're going to like fall in the spirit and like feel this thing, So I think it can happen secular or religious. Like it just doesn't matter.
Yeah, there's actually some interesting stuff out there on people having like these like spiritual sort of experience. It's the group setting, it's the music, it's just a lot of things play into it, and people have this strange transcendental sort of feeling out of it.
No, I agree. And that's with anything. Like when you have a group of people, religious or not, you're going to have these like intense experiences with like especially with music involved. Like music is such a like heightened thing. So sometimes I think about how people talk about the church, and I think about how they'll be like, oh, why do they like lift their hands and do a thing? I'm like, you do the same thing at concerts. You do the same thing at fucking Kanye. Like you do the same things. So why are you viewing it in a different lens? Like,
because the music isn't as good. That's why.
Absolutely. And I agree with that. But it's like,
you're moved by that.
Yeah.
No,
So,
but I
I
agree with you. I'm making a joke. I do agree with you. I think that people are. It's very obvious why, to me at least, why people do that. Even as someone who had just a brush up with that kind of the, I don't know, that emotional, charismatic type worship style was like, I did have a brush up with it where for probably a year or two, a couple years that, um, I was into it in that way. And then when I wasn't able to anymore, I actually was concerned like that I was losing something. Like, I started to find like my identity in that to some degree, like, oh, I can, like, that's how I participate in this. And I would, I often, not even often, I think I almost exclusively confused my emotional experiences with spiritual experiences. And I would try to force them in some way. And then the times that it didn't work, it was often maybe in my own head about it, or whatever reason it didn't play out the way that I hoped it would. When I would go to those gatherings, I would kind of leave disappointed and feel like a bit of a failure. So like it was a strange thing to participate in, but I 100% get, if you're just participating in it and it's a way of life and it's not something you're trying to force or whatever, like just being a member in a church where the message is meaningful to you and you can get caught up in that. It makes sense that would happen. And I think it is interesting that people do knock on it when you can really just pan across a stadium of Taylor Swift fans and watch them all just melting and
yeah. And so today for me, like, so I haven't been to church, like a traditional church. Let's see. Well, COVID was a thing. So it's been probably a year and a half. And so, and it's hard for me to go to church for that reason. Cause so after master's commission, I actually did a church plant because I got kicked out of master's commission, and then I didn't do anything for like a couple of years. And then I helped with like a church plant. So I've seen all these sides of like what it is to like build a church, what it is to serve in a church, what it is to go to a church, what it is to have somebody invite me to a church and to invite others to church. I've been a part of every angle of that. And so now it's hard for me to go to church because I just see all the behind the scenes, and I know what it takes to make up. I know the hype. I know that people are greeters on Sunday and they're just being nice to me. And I know that they want me to come back because, they want everybody to come back. And I know all of that, right? So it's hard for me to go to church now because I know all the ins and outs. But then at the same time, I think, okay, that is for like a certain person needs that. Just like I needed that at some point. And like now I'm at a place where I need something different and I'm investing in something different. Like I try to just like love people where they're at and just like be who I am and be really authentic. And then who I'm around, I try to be really authentic and say, hey, you be you. Like we're all just trying to figure it out. And wherever you're at in that, just do it, And so but it's hard. Do you go to church, Sam? Like a traditional church?
I don't know how you would define traditional. I do go to one. It has fluctuating number of people. Right now, we just do it outside for this because of COVID. None of us really want to meet indoors. But I don't know. I don't know that there's a lot of. I don't know how you define a traditional church, but yeah, I do participate.
Is it a gathering of people where they sing a song and then a guy talks for a long time and it sucks?
Casey, I think you don't go to church, which is why I didn't ask you.
I do not.
Yes, I didn't think so. Okay.
That kind of resonates with me too. Like it's almost like you saw how the sausage was made.
Yeah, and you don't want to eat it now. Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I've got part of my problem, and it's not necessarily a good thing, is I think I have like this really strong disinterest in authenticity. and again, like maybe at times it might even be irrational, but when I don't like being worked, and I feel like I get the same feeling a lot of times from like the greeters and stuff at a church that I get when like I'm working with a sales guy and he's working me, and I hate that. I just just be you, and if you don't want to say hi to me, then that's fine, but don't do this. Like, good to see you, brother. Oh boy, we are blessed to have you here for fellowship. Like, not interested.
Yeah. So that's that. So I know exactly what that feels like. And Casey, are you in sales? You're in sales, right?
Yep.
So you know what it is to be sold. So I'm also, so I get that. And that's the part that like makes me like cringe. Cause I'm like, boy, I see you. You're trying to sell me or whatever. And I'm no, like, I just get done and I get turned off and I'm like, I know what you're doing right now and fuck you. Like that's immediately how I feel. So now what I do is I don't go to church. No. But no, now what I do is I have a community at like my house and through the hobbies I have and all this stuff. And I just try to like love people where they're at because I genuinely care about them and because I genuinely love them and because I want to be around them. And I'm like, and I find all these kind of misfits kind of organically that I'm like, hey, do you want to come over for Christmas dinner? Hey, do you want to come over for this? Hey, we're doing this thing if you want to come over. And I'm not trying to, and I feel good about that because I'm not trying to sell them anything. I'm not trying to say, hey, come here so I can then invite you to church. I'm just saying, hey, come here just because I like you. And because if you don't have anywhere to go, you can come here. And I feel like that is the church. I feel like that is what like God wants us to be. And I feel like it's just supposed to be like this love thing. And it's like supposed to like include everybody. And it's like loving. I still believe a lot of really specific things about what I've learned. And it's one of them is just like loving people exactly where they are and calling them to be what they think they're supposed to be, So it's like, hey, I love you and I'm going to support you in whatever you want. So, that can be all over the place sometimes, but yeah.
It's weird how like I don't know, you just say like your spiritual beliefs are like this strange mix. It's like a concoction of faith and community.
Yeah.
And like you can't really do one without the other. And like I feel like that's where I ended up was the faith was all posturing, and it took me a long time to figure that out, but it was the case is like this is not real to me. As it like I don't have a genuine like I don't have genuine conviction about these things, and the community's gone. It's totally missing, And then, when I found community elsewhere, a mutual friend was a huge part of that.
Yeah.
Huge part. And I don't like to say nice things about him, but he was a big part of that for me. And that's really where like, because I found community elsewhere, that was when I was finally able to be honest about my lack of conviction.
Yeah. Well, and I really think that like community and authenticity is what like God wants. Like I don't like everything that I've seen in church that's fake and put on. It's like that doesn't bring anything. It's when somebody's like raw and humble and real and like pain, like all those things, that's like what brings like change and realness. And I, as much as like my mom tearing off her wig in the middle of like this all white church, I saw something in my mom that I was like, she's real though. And like to this day, if you guys meet my mom, oh my gosh, she's a fucking hoot. And she loves her some Jesus. And she will tell you that like, nope, that's who gets me through the day. That's what does a thing. And I saw that growing up and I see it in my life today. Like, I'm like, I love me some Jesus, at the end of the day, that's like the thing that's going to like bring me to, that's the thing that's going to like ground me. And
yeah,
I don't understand all the logistics and I don't understand all the, the minutia of it all, but I know that my faith is like real and it's here and it's like with God, and I don't always get it right. And I say fuck and I get drunk and I don't get it all right all the time, but I'm like, but I love me some Jesus. So
I think that's the best.
Yeah.
I think that's really great. Like being able to, I was having a discussion with a guy in a forum the other day, and he kind of had a similar sort of outlook on it. And I really thought about like, man, that's the sweet spot. Take what you need from what you got and discard the rest. Like if this isn't bringing you joy and if it's not doing anything good for you, then get rid of it and keep it and focus on this. This right here is what's important, you know?
Yeah. And I'll say a lot of therapy is with that too. So
pastoral counseling.
Therapy after getting kidnapped. That's weird.
Yeah, no, I've done a lot of therapy. So yeah, no, there was therapy. There's therapy there. There's a lot there. But no, I think, I was going to tell you guys, there's a book actually that Casey, you're not going to read, but Sam, you might, is how, I can't remember the exact name of it. And you might have already read this. But it's What the Bible Really Means. I think
How
is
the
what
Bible
it's
Actually Works by Peter Enns.
Yeah. Did you like that?
Yeah.
What did you think about that? You liked it?
It's fantastic.
I thought it was pretty good too. I don't know if fantastic was the word. I thought it was like good. And I thought like, well, yeah, duh.
Yeah.
Right.
It is. But it's interesting because a lot of people might not necessarily find a lot of that as, yeah, duh. I think it was the time that I read it, it was right after it came out and it was really helpful. He's also had, I've read a couple of his other books too. He's been one of the most helpful people for me in processing my shift in understanding about the Bible.
Did you give Casey the Cliff Notes of that one?
No, Casey doesn't care. So
Casey, get the Cliff Notes from
Sam. I got a general
idea
idea of what it is, and it sounds awful.
I mean, words on a page to Casey just sound awful.
So basically, let me sum it up, and to Sam, tell me if I do a decent job. But basically, how the Bible actually works
that to you.
Is
this is a trap? This feels like a trap.
This is a trap. No, but basically, it's just kind of like, hey, the Bible's this book of wisdom. Don't take it so seriously. And maybe read it kind of with a grain of salt. And maybe it doesn't have everything right. And maybe that's okay. And maybe there's some tension in it. And let's just take what we can from it. Eat the meat, spit out the bones. Done. Was that your take?
Yeah. I mean, that is essentially my take. It's like, I guess it's just more, it's like about understanding the formation. Some of it's a formation of the Bible and why, it says different things at different times. And it's about trajectory and how and why it, I guess, just how it works. But yeah, I think you did a great job kind of just summarizing it. It does give you the feeling that like, you don't have to like, we all grew up with this thing that's like, you would pull a verse out of Exodus and be like, I guess that's true. What do I do with that? And it could have been something really fucked up. And you're like, I don't really know. Oh, God said to do that. That seems really dark. And it kind of was an introduction into like, it makes a shift from this is what God said to this is what people thought God was saying and how people understood God at the time. And then you can watch that shift over time, over the centuries, based on when books were written and how you can see their understanding of God change over time.
Yeah, and I think even now, so I think for me now, I look at things like, gosh, there's so many things, right? That I'm like, I look at some people sometimes and go, hey, I don't know, but I love you. And I'm going to be here for you. And I love you. And I think God loves you too. And I don't know any details. Like, I don't know if that's right or that's wrong. And I don't think it matters. But
apologetics isn't your not your focus at
not at all. That's why
Master's Commission University.
No, not at all. Which I never graduated that. Which is why I loved what was her name? Bethany? Was it Bethany? Bethany?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. That's why I loved her so much. I was like, wow, she's like done her fucking research and she's gone this and done this and done this. And I was like, maybe I need to do that.
Yeah.
It was impressive. But yeah, so I just think like if we just love people and be kind, and maybe that's what we're supposed to do, and maybe that'll change the world in some small way and build our little communities, then maybe we'll do something.
Absolutely. Thanks for sharing your story. That's it makes you wonder how many of these types of programs are around that we just don't hear much about, or they were localized to some extent, or there's things like teen missions and all of those types of deals. I know
YWAM, like Youth with a Mission.
Yeah, yours sounds YWAM-y a little bit in the way that it's like a constant grind.
Yeah, I think YWAM is an Assemblies of God thing. I think. Can I also tell you guys that? So during Master's Commission, I applied for, I think it was a YWAM missions thing, and I was going to like go to some random country. And on the application, it asked me like, do I drink alcohol? And I was like, let me be honest. Yes, I do. Like, and so then I had this in-person interview. They're like, how often do you drink alcohol? And I was like, I don't know. At that time, it was 1 or 2 nights a month. Now it's a little bit different. But at that time, it was like, I don't know, 1 or 2 nights a month. So I literally didn't get accepted into this program because I answered yes. Isn't that
that's
like,
so dumb?
That's the thing. It's like, that's so fucking dumb.
They were afraid if they sent you to Mongolia, you were just going to guzzle fermented horse milk.
And it's like, man, how many people got shut down or shunned or felt shameful because it's like they answered honestly, and you stop them from like doing a thing that they really wanted to do. Because like for me, that was pretty heartbreaking. And and even like I had been in contact with the guy who I was gonna, like the family who I was gonna like move with. It was in Georgia, the country. And it was like such a big deal. And I was like, oh, I didn't get accepted. And it was like, because I answered yes, because I drank. Like, that's dumb.
They need to take a move from the Southern Baptists, and just make you sign something saying that you won't anymore.
I won't anymore. I know. Well, that's exactly actually what I said in the in-person interview. I was like, but I won't while I'm there. Like, but I do currently, but I'm fine with not. Like, that's fine. Anyways. Yeah.
Well, when you find sin, you gotta jerk it up by the root. That's what I say.
You do. Okay, I'm looking at my notes, y'all, because
Can I just mention that Lloyd Ziegler looks like Woody Harrelson if he hadn't bashed his nose into a wall or whatever he did.
Wait, can you click on your thing so it doesn't make it so white? We can't. Oh, there it goes.
There he is. Doesn't he look like Woody Harrelson?
He does. So I was looking through my yearbook, my Master's Commission yearbook 2 nights ago, kind of prepping. I was trying to remember like all the weird shit. There was a lot of weird shit that I wrote down. But one of the things I found was like top 10 things not to do your first year. And so it was like, number 10 was like, think for yourself.
Oh,
that's a little on the nose.
Yeah. Number 9, have anything to do with people. Number 8, ride on the elevator, which I don't know why that was a thing. But number 7, think you know about anything about your future. Number 6, be in the same room with the opposite sex. Number 7, look at the opposite sex. Number 7, 6, 5. Number 4, sit with the opposite sex. Number 3, look at the opposite sex for longer than 2.5 seconds. Number 2, stand under a mistletoe. And number 1, speak in tongues, as in like make out with people. Like, so
speak in tongues.
Yeah.
Is mistletoe just like scattered over every doorway in East Texas?
Right?
Or?
I know, maybe.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So it's funny, but we didn't even talk about mission trips, but it's okay. That's not that.
Man, it's food or seed for our return visit.
Yeah, you need to do that. But I would be curious to see. So there's a lot of podcasts too that have all these like negative takes about Master's Commission. I feel like mine's not that negative, but there's a lot of people with, like I said, a lot of trauma, which is totally valid. And I will say that today I still talk with my like people, the girls that were in my first year class with me. We're still, because of our experience, we're still like friends. Like I know I could call any of them today and be like, hey, I need this, or hey, I'm going through this, and they would like just drop everything. Like we're still like friends today. So I am really grateful for that. I'm really grateful for the relationships that came out of that. And we're all like today questioning like, what is faith? Like some of them, it's funny because some of them are pastors' wives, some of them are pastors, and then some of them are people like me who just like party and have fun all the time. And so we're all just kind of like wrestling like with like, what is faith now? What does that look like? We're kind of reframing it all, kind of like we're doing right now. And like, I don't know what this is, and I don't really have it all figured out. And maybe there's space for more. And maybe we just kind of look at it really humbly and go, hey, I just don't know. And that's okay.
It's like the value of it is not dependent upon you knowing every minute detail about it.
Yeah. And the more and more I feel like I know less, I'm like, I'm kind of okay with that. I'm just okay with like loving people, and that's it. And that's not my job to do anything else. It's just to love people. So it was such a delight to talk to you guys. I feel like I just want you guys to know that during the podcast, I'll talk back to you, but you don't know because it's a podcast. And I'll be like, oh my gosh, yes, that. Oh, I totally get it. And so
just scream at your radio like, stop interrupting each other.
I do. I'll say that. And I'll be like, yeah, I totally had that same experience, which I can't think of any right now. But yeah. So I love that y'all have created this little community and this space where people can just like share their stories, and you don't realize like how similar stories are. Like I can't remember something. I can't remember which one of you guys said it, but I was like, oh my gosh, y'all did that there? We did that in Texas. And I was like, what? This was a thing everywhere, all over the nation? And yeah, it was just weird Christianity. And then in what is it, the 90s, 2000s?
Yep.
All throughout.
Yeah.
Good era.
So, great era. So yeah, that's all.
Well, thanks again for coming on. It was a ton of fun.
It was.
And thank you guys for listening. Remember, we got the Discord. You can find links in any of our social media. And if you're enjoying the podcast, we would really appreciate it if you'd share it with a friend and leave us a 5-star review on the platform of your choice. So thanks a lot, and we will talk to you next time.